Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the official Getting Into Games podcast. Each week, we talk to a games industry professional about their long, windy, and twisty journeys into the games industry, how they got there, and what it is that they do. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Heather Bishop over at Game Anglia. How are you doing, Heather?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm not doing bad, and as we said before this, that I was very much looking forward to the weekend already, which is bad at 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning, but that's fine. That's fine. We'll power on through and we'll get there.
Exactly. I mean, you've got to be fairly optimistic about the weekend, That's why it's the end of the week.
Exactly. It's something good to look forward to, and I've got some nice plans as well. So I'm seeing a few people, seeing a few friends. Hopefully, going to go out and do some stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, I'm going to get off talking about me. This is about you. So I have a few questions. I think just to kick us off, it would be really, really great if you just told us a little bit about yourself and what you do over at Game Anglia.
Sure. I'm Heather. I did a degree in game design at University of Suffolk in Ipswich, and I joined Game Anglia in 2017 as a volunteer. So Game Anglia is it's an events company, but we're essentially trying to promote the industry in the east of England. I joined as a volunteer and worked on their first conference, and then they seemed to quite like me, so they asked me if I wanted to essentially co-coordinate the indie showcase, which is an opportunity for indie developers to showcase their games for free with us. And I did that, and I must have done fairly well, because they then sort of said, "Oh, do you want to be a director now?" And I said, "Well, go on then, that sounds like a nice idea." Yeah, and here we are in 2020, and they haven't got rid of me yet.
Brilliant, amazing. So how did that kind of come about? Finding out about Game Anglia, they've been around for a long time when you started joining them.
No, green around the gills in 2017. So it was quite nice because we all kind of grew together. So that worked out really nicely. Essentially, one of my co-directors, Chris, was an alumni from Suffolk as well. And he sort of decided, okay, we're going to have the event in University of Suffolk because he's got connections and stuff. And it was just a nice little safety net for the first event. And then that was kind of how I met. The course lead introduced us and sort of said to Chris, "Oh, she's a capable human being. Get her to help you."
Brilliant. And so how did kind of Game Anglia come about?
It was Chris and Mark's baby, and I just kind of joined later. I think it all started, they were having a conversation, probably in the pub, because we are game developers after all, about how there was no events in the local region, and that kind of led to the fact that there's no developers as such in the region. Like, there are a few very brave individuals who are kind of plugging away at it, but it's not, the industry and the community isn't what it should be, considering how big the industry is in general. And they just decided they were going to be the go-getters to go change that.
Brilliant, and it certainly seems like they have. It feels like there's a really strong presence now around kind of the East Anglia kind of region around game development. And for anyone who's perhaps a young person or a student coming through at either BTEC or university level, there's an organization out there that they can reach out to. There's a whole big network there of game developers.
Yeah, absolutely so. And then because there's a couple of other kind of companies that have sprung up as well, and we all try to maintain quite a nice collaborative community environment, because there's enough of us to go round. We just need to be nice to each other.
Exactly. You got to help each other out. So for anyone who's listening that doesn't know, I'd love you to kind of talk through what a co-director does. What sort of things do you do as your kind of coordination role, co-director role at Game Anglia?
So I have organised events, which kind of ranges from lots of emails, lots of phone calls, lots of organising people and making sure they're kind of where they need to be at the right times, contacting developers, contacting speakers and that kind of thing. And then just a small disclaimer, I am the best at admin. Admin is my superpower. So I very quickly kind of took over managing the books, the policies, the procedures, and making sure that all of our paperwork was in line. I mean, it's not very glamorous, but it's my thing. I can't help it.
I wish that I was good at that. I'm absolutely terrible at all of that stuff. I just forget about it until the last moment and then have to do it all at once. So definitely.
Yeah. That was our story in 2017. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially it. And then if there is an event kind of live and happening right now, depending on the nature of the event, it's talking to lots of people, making sure they're okay, making sure they have what they need, and that any visitors are having a good time. So a bit of problem solving and troubleshooting and stuff, I'd imagine you can empathize.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's pretty much where I lie as well, that sort of thing. So, for any kind of young person out there who's interested in perhaps pursuing something around like events coordination, perhaps even the admin side of stuff as well, the sort of role that you do at Game Anglia, what sort of skills should they be looking out for? What are some of the real top things that you feel that you bring to your role at Game Anglia?
So self-management straight off the bat. So at Game Anglia, we do check in on each other and make sure that we're okay and that things are going well with task-wise, but nobody's got the time to kind of dedicate 3 hours each week to making sure that we've all done what we said we were going to do and so on. So you need to be fairly autonomous in prioritizing and selecting your tasks and how they relate to the event that's happening. And then you need to be organized enough that you've actually put them in your schedule and you've actually done them. It sounds really self-explanatory, but it's something that very easily snowballs into, I've got 1,000 things to do and 3 days to do them.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'd probably say communication as well. I mean, it doesn't matter what job you're going for, communication is a big one. But for event coordination and that level of things, it can range from instructions to explanations to people and to feedback on what they have done or haven't done. And you have to be speaking to your team all the time. Everyone needs to know what's going on, where it's happening, and for how long it's happening. Nobody should ever have to be chasing you for information on when that document's going to be ready, or if it's more kind of in the industry, when that 3D model is going to be done, and you shouldn't have any difficulty or issues telling them in a very useful and effective way, because that's kind of the next side of that coin. Like, the way you disseminate that information is quite important.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's some really important skills that perhaps don't get talked about a lot in when you're learning game development. Some of those soft skills around kind of coordination, kind of self-organization and management, and like time management as well, and just like really being efficient with your time, and also like that coordination with other people as well, like communication with other people, knowing what to say and when, how you say it. All of those sort of skills, I think, are hugely, hugely important in kind of like general project management, especially I think in game development. Really, really important.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, when I did my degree, I couldn't tell you how many turd games are in my wake because we just didn't know how to communicate with each other. We didn't know how to organize our time, and you sprint to the deadline and the finish line, and then you kind of get there and you realize, oh, well, we didn't really do that very well, did we? We were limping the whole time and we didn't even know.
Yeah, exactly. But it's one of those things, it's a bit of a learning curve, right? You have to like fail at it lots of times first before you learn these things, and like it's yeah, it's just trial and error. And I think that's one of the great things about kind of game jams specifically that I think are really, really great, that you kind of just like, you have to just fail over and over and over again. And so much of the part of the process of that is just like getting things wrong. And then sometimes, those things that you get wrong end up actually being the thing that is most fun about the game, or, you create some crazy thing out of it and you just, complete kind of trial and error over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to know a little bit more about kind of Game Anglia at the moment, where you guys are at, kind of what's coming next for you, what kind of projects you have going on. Basically, yeah, what's the future look like for Game Anglia?
Busy. So we're trying to get off a really, really big indie showcase in hopefully Ipswich, but obviously COVID has kind of put a bit of a pin in that one. So we're just figuring out if we're going to move that online or if we're going to really try to do the push for an in-person event and ensure that everything's socially distanced and how that's going to work. I'm going to cough, bear with me 1 second. What else have we got? So we've got the Kratis program, which we're running with Colchester Borough Council. So we're essentially putting together a bunch of smaller webinars for creative entrepreneurs, basically. So we've had all sorts of bits and pieces with them. So dealing with the imposter syndrome, how to pitch business planning for people who don't like business planning, which is probably something we should have gone to back in 2017, but it didn't exist, so we couldn't. What else have we got? So we've got a program that we're possibly about to launch called the Lift Foundation. It's in collaboration with Norfolk County Council and Suffolk County Council, and it's basically a short course for people not in education or employment to help them get into education or employment. Obviously, we're focusing on the games industry because that's where our expertise lies. But yeah, so it should take you step by step through making a game and then launching. Amazing.
That sounds like a really, really great project.
Hopefully. I mean, we've got some fantastic support around us, so I think we'll be okay. And we're quite excited to get it started because it's a difficult thing, like particularly if you didn't manage to go through the formal route of education, you didn't manage to get your GCSEs and so on and so forth, then you kind of find yourself in a bit of a difficult situation when you then try to go to college or university afterwards. And then jobs are quite slim because you don't have any qualifications and you can't get the experience because you don't have the qualifications. It's a very weird circular thing.
Yeah, no, totally. It's a complete kind of catch-22 and something that's, a problem much wider than the games industry, but something that I think, particularly resonates with the industry. It's hugely, really highly educated. And there's not really many pathways in for anyone who doesn't fit the bill for that. And there's a lot of reasons kind of why that happens. Industry's grown so quickly, there hasn't been any kind of like formalized routes into the industry. And people, I guess, like when they started kind of legitimizing like games design degrees, that became the kind of predominant route to get in. And now it's just the way that everyone goes. So I think 90% of the industry, it's got at least one degree. So there's really, really not many pathways outside of that. And I think that, what this project that really sounds like an opportunity for those who don't have that formal higher education to really get like tangible games design experience. And it seems like actually like that is one of the things that's most important to kind of game studios is like portfolio. It's a body of work. And it's just more often than not, university is setting you up for creating that body of work. But if there was perhaps another route in or another way or another support network like you guys are creating, then potentially there could be some young people coming out with some really cracking, amazing portfolios that haven't had to go through that kind of conventional academic system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the dream anyway. And it also would mean that people who don't thrive in a traditional academic situation are going to be just as, I'll rephrase that, they're going to have just as much opportunity to pursue what they want to pursue as anybody else. So, I mean, I always thrived quite a lot in an academic environment, but most of my friends did not. So when we went to college, they took very practical subjects, and they enjoyed those subjects, but then it kind of when we left, it meant that I was kind of earning significantly more money from them than them. And yet we were essentially doing a job that was equally as difficult because we were both in graduate positions and it just made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. The system kind of like is afforded more towards kind of those who do the kind of conventional kind of academic subjects than it is that those that do practical. And it means that especially, which is, there's however many young people studying like BTECs and HNCs and HNDs up in Scotland, which is just a so much more kind of practical kinesthetic learning experience that suits so many young people better. Often those are young people that were kind of let down by our kind of education system before that, because again, it's very classroom based, it's very academic, it's very head down, get on with your work. And this is an opportunity for them to kind of try something different and try a new learning approach that is much more hands-on and much more project based. And then it seems strange that then from that, the next step onwards is to go back into the classroom and go to university again, after they've just spent those 2 years kind of unlearning all that and relearning how to do things in that kind of much more practical, really industry informed way. It's quite strange.
Yeah, and it's quite difficult as well because disclaimer, I have a day job and that is actually teaching at a university. And a lot of my kind of more mature students, they find that sort of coming back to education very difficult, and then the kind of the bars to entry they had to hurdle, and then they kind of get there, and then they're in a room with a bunch of 18 to sort of 21-year-olds, and they sort of look around and they're like, oh, okay. And it can be really difficult for them to readjust back to that mentality. I'm not sure I could.
No, definitely not. It feels a bit easier going fresh from school when it's been drilled into you. It's a totally different setting, I think. You know what, actually, I do think probably I would have done better, because I think I would have been better prepared for it. I've known what to expect. Whereas, yeah, I think when I was 18, 19, I think I was more worried about other things than I was about how well I did at my degree.
I mean, Freshers Week was always a fan favourite.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking forward to that than I was more looking forward to my subjects and my classes, for sure.
I think we're all guilty of that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of having worked with Game Anglia and having worked with the university students that you work with, you've kind of had quite a lot of experience of, what it's like for a young person today to try and navigate getting into the industry and really kind of sit there as that kind of support for them. What advice would you give to a young person who's looking to get into the industry?
It kind of links back to your point earlier, fail faster. Find whatever you enjoy or whatever your contribution to our society is going to be on a kind of macro or a micro level, and then fail at it. Fail at it as quickly and as much as you can. Keep a record of everything that you've made as a result of all these failures. Put those on your portfolio, because through that failure, you'll find success and you will get better at getting to the success. Yeah, I think that would be my general advice.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great. I think that's really, really good advice. And you mentioned there around kind of like showing that you've made mistakes and got improved in your portfolio. Portfolio seems something that's hugely powerful and really, really important when kind of getting your first job or going to university. Do you have any advice around kind of portfolio building from the experience you've had working with students and the people that you've worked with at Game Anglia?
Put everything on there, even if you're a bit ashamed of it. Don't be ashamed. It doesn't matter that you made something 3 years ago that was a bit naff. What matters is where you are now compared to there. And if we can see your journey as a human being throughout this thing, then that's a lot more illuminating for us. And I know it is for employers within the industry as well. It's not just about who you are now, it's about who you were and how you got here.
Okay, that's really interesting. I've heard actually quite a few differing opinions around around kind of portfolio building, and some people say really just like slim it down and have just maybe a couple best pieces in there. Some people kind of say similar to you, and some people say in the middle. I guess it really just depends on the employer as well. And I think that's actually one of the things that's come up as well, is like, think about where you're applying to, think about who the studio is, think about what type of work they do, think about what sorts of things that they're going to want to see, and kind of tailor it almost to what you think they're going to want, basically.
Yeah, I think that's probably really good, safe advice, to be honest with you. Because I suppose the other side of that coin is that when you're doing a recruitment drive and you're trying to go through a bunch of portfolios, you don't have endless time. And you need to kind of get a bit of a measure of who someone is very quickly. So have all of your kind of core projects that you're really proud of and you really want to showcase, or that you think the company is really going to like, on the kind of homepage, but then always have the other stuff available on other pages so that they could see them if they wanted to, maybe.
Yeah, no, I like that. I really like that kind of sentiment around being able to see someone's developmental journey and realize that, perhaps in quite short space of time as well, they've improved and developed and built up a new repertoire of skills. I think that shows that you're like adaptable and very adept to learning new things. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be able to show how far you've come in such a short space of time.
Yeah. And it's quite nice at parties and things as well, because you kind of pull out your portfolio for cringe fodder. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. I've had a few actually students that I've worked with before that kind of feel quite cringy about showing kind of some of their older stuff, but it's quite funny to look back and see some of the like crazy 3D models and stuff like that people have made, that at the time when they first started, obviously they were just like, I can't believe I've made this like amazing kind of piece of work, and they look back and they're like, oh, done.
Yeah, my job interview for where I'm currently employed was much like that, and I sat in the interview and sort of showcased some of the things that I've made, and then my interviewer sort of turned around and said, "Oh, can we go to page 1, please?" No, no. I did, and he sort of was really fabulous about it, but I sort of thought, no, please don't see my secret shame, no.
Very funny. Very, very funny. So I'd love you to kind of take me back, Heather, all the way back to when you were first kind of studying games design. What inspired that, and what was your path getting into games? You know, what was that career journey like for you, and perhaps maybe how things changed even in that short space of time?
So I decided at about 13, 14 that I wanted to help people. That was my mission in life. That's what I wanted to do. So I very quickly kind of fixated on the idea that I was going to become a nurse in the military. And due to some personal circumstances, that dream was just very apparent. It became really apparent to me that that wasn't realistic. And I floundered for quite a few years, and video games really, really got me through those difficult times. And then I don't really know, sometime around, well, I was about 24, I think. So I was a mature student. I decided that I was going to go and do a degree in games, that I could use games to help people as I'd originally intended. And I quite impulsively, I think, decided to go to university. It wasn't something I sat down and thought about for a long time. It was more, okay, I found the thing, I'm going to go do it now. So I did. I did my degree. And then sometime in my third year, it really occurred to me, what am I going to do for money after all this? Because I'm a bit too contrary, I think, to make someone else's vision. So in my third year, this kind of real deep panic set in, and I kind of thought, oh no, I'm going to starve after this. What am I going to do for money? But I was really, really fortunate, and I had already been working with Game Anglia for a year, and through that I met some really lovely people, and I managed to get into education. And I didn't anticipate staying in education, but then it really just kind of ticked that box for me. You know, I was helping a bunch of students achieve their dreams and their vision, and I don't know, it stuck, and I really loved my job. And then Game Anglia fulfilled that as well for me. So I get to be greedy, and I get to do two things that I love, and then develop on the side and make things that I want to make.
Yeah, exactly. It's the absolute dream. It's the absolute dream for sure. And it feels like, you know, you fulfilled that dream there around wanting to help people, and you've managed to marry something that, you know, you really love with something that you were kind of deeply passionate about doing. I know that I kind of certainly feel the same way as well. It feels like a really nice marrying of the two. And I think we've actually managed to find ourselves in kind of quite a sweet spot where there actually aren't that many organizations out there or opportunities to be able to do that, to say that we get to, you know, talk about games as we are now and work in games, but at the same time kind of fulfill that thing of just wanting to be able to, I guess, like amplify other people's voices, right? You know, I kind of feel similarly. I don't know if I could work on someone else's vision, but I quite like the idea of like amplifying someone else so that they can create their vision, you know?
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. I'm so grateful for every person that has come to me afterwards and said, okay, I've made this game and I'm actually really happy with it. And hopefully eventually they'll say, I made this game and it got me a job at wherever. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that you're going to see so many people coming through the Game Anglia pipeline that are like going into amazing jobs in industry. And, you know, it's everyone always says, but for a big industry, it's such a small industry, and you know that you're going to end up seeing these people again, right?
Oh, I really hope so.
Amazing. So you talked there before about kind of how games had gotten you through some of those tougher times, which leads us on really, really well to some of the other questions. I feel like with these ones, I'm always kind of like not sure how to go about asking them, because it's going off the assumption, I suppose, that everyone who works in the games industry plays games, which isn't actually true at all. And something that I actually try and quite a lot to tell people that isn't the case. You know, there's loads of artists out there who work in the games industry specifically because it lets them work on really huge diversity of projects and like really kind of flex their creativity in an interesting way that other creative arts don't get let them do. But they're not necessarily big gamers. But you've already solved that for me and said that you were playing games, so that's great. So it means that I can ask those questions and I don't have to worry about putting you on the spot. Well, I perhaps will put you on the spot anyway, but
go for it. I'm ready. Let's do this.
Okay, great. So you're stranded on a desert island. You've got a plug socket. Well, say you probably need two plug sockets for a TV and a console and you can take one game with you. What game are you bringing with you? It doesn't necessarily need to be a favorite game, but think about what game you'd want to be playing on the desert island, knowing that it's the only game you've got.
Oh, that'd be a difficult one. I think, strangely, I think I would go Age of Empires or Empire Earth.
Yeah.
Just to pick a weird one.
No, I think Age of Empires is great. I think it's got like infinite replayability. I think you can go play hundreds and hundreds of hours of Age of Empires and never get bored.
Yeah, I think it was a strategic choice because my kind of runner-up was The Last of Us, because it doesn't matter how many times I play that game, I just can't stop loving it. But I think you after, say, 300, 400 playthroughs, you'd be a bit bored of it. But Age of Empires, you've got some replayability in there.
I think so. I think if you played The Last of Us 300 or 400 times, you'd be quite a spiteful person by the end of it, I imagine.
Yeah, the resentment between Joel and Ellie would be just feverish.
Yeah, absolutely. And then forbid, I don't know if you played the second one, but I'm just playing through that now. If you played that 300 or 400 times, wow, you really would be a hateful person, I think.
Yeah, very much so.
I don't want to meet the person who's played that 300 times.
Yes, it's not what you call to have faith in humanity or any kind of joy, really, is it? It's not a go-to game.
No, keep you sane on a desert island. No, absolutely not. Age of Empires, I think that's a great answer. Really, really great answer. So much game time in there. You could really just get lost in that for sure. Okay.
So many hours of my childhood.
Absolutely. Hours well spent.
Oh yeah, it's not a waste. Never a waste.
Okay, second question. This one, again, is another one that I've asked so many people, and I've never once had a repeated answer, and I'm sure it will be the same again, especially given your answer for the last one. So if you had the opportunity to work on any game, this could have been a game that came out years ago, it could be a game that's coming out now, it could be a game that's in the future, or even perhaps a sequel to a game that you wished had been made and never was. You have the opportunity to work on the development team for that game. What game is it and why?
Oh, okay. I don't think this is going to be a very different answer to ones you've had before, but I think I would go The Last of Us, purely because I have a very deep emotional connection to this game, because it was one of the first games that I ever bought for myself. So it came to me at a time in my life when it was the first time I'd ever really been able to afford new games and AAA games, and kind of I played it through, and the first time I played it through, it was a really, really terrible slog, because I was living with my mum and she's not a gamer, so she doesn't have that intrinsic understanding that when the headphones are on, don't come a knocking. So she ruined quite a few of the really big plot points for me. So then when I went and played it through the second time, I kind of hit the emotional experiences that Naughty Dog intended for me, but I had a much more kind of, oh, I see how you put that together, level of respect for it than I think you naturally would. And so as a result, I kind of have this very fangirly infatuation with The Last of Us. So Naughty Dog, if you're listening, hit me up. I'm available for design work.
No, I think it's a great answer, and you know what? This is the first repeated answer, so unfortunately, we're going to have to end it right here.
I have failed.
No, we only have ever had that once before, but it's absolutely a brilliant answer, and it really is a fantastic game, and that that's actually something that I feel like I've noticed as well over the last few months of playing games, is actually looking at them through that different lens that I hadn't before. I felt like I studied film and felt like I looked at films in that way, but hadn't looked at games in that way until maybe of the last year. And it definitely does give you a newfound appreciation for them, for sure, when you have the opportunity to kind of step back a little bit and say, how did they put that together? Because obviously it's so much of it is so seamless, right? And the fact that you don't pick it apart shows, I think, especially with something like The Last of Us, how great and well put together a game it is.
Very much so. Yeah, they're just so good at what they do, aren't they? So much so that they convince you that it just appeared like that one day. And I think that's the real trick, isn't it? You can't see, as you said, the seams of how it all fits together.
Yeah, exactly. Which is incredible considering how many people likely worked on that game as well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of seams. The game is just all seams, basically.
Very much so, yeah. And I look back at some of my projects and I think, well, you can definitely tell that that was two separate artists working together or two separate designers. I don't know how they do it. It's incredible.
I don't know. Following someone else's creative vision, something neither of us are able to do, it seems.
Maybe that's why we don't get it.
Right, we have one final question, and you may not have an answer for this one. It depends. And that is, which game, if any game, has made you cry?
Ooh, I'm gonna go. I don't know if you'll have heard of it. Presentable Liberty.
No, please tell me more.
So it's a little first-person indie game. It's kind of in a post-apocalyptic world, but the entire game takes place in a single prison cell, and you receive letters. One from the person that owns the prison, and one from a random lady who lives nearby who owns a cake shop. And through these letters, I won't give anything away, but this very engaging narrative develops. And the very end of it, I was crying. Like, there are no words for how hard I was crying.
I've never heard of it before. What was it called again? Sorry.
Presentable Liberty.
And where can I check that out?
I'm going to say itch.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Oh, sounds lovely. And it's about like a kind of piecing a story together through letters that are written to you?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's a very, very low poly kind of art style. I think I couldn't confirm, but it kind of has that game jam look about it. So someone very quickly put it together in a short space of time and then later went back and polished it a little bit, I think.
Right. Oh, wow. No, definitely have to check that out. And that's definitely not an answer that we've had before. I'm sure you will already know that.
I'm quite pleased I managed to get one in there that no one had said before.
Yeah. No one's ever said Age of Empires before either. That's a great answer. So we're almost finished up, but I guess I would just love to give you the opportunity to, talk about anything that you've got going on just now. Anything you want to shout about, anything you guys have got going on at the amazing work over at Game Anglia, any initiatives that young people can get involved with, perhaps any projects that you've got up and coming, any of that lovely stuff. Would love to hear more about it.
For Game Anglia, I'm just going to do a plug hunt, and I'm going to say just check out our website, gameanglia.co.uk, because we've got some stuff upcoming, and we've got some stuff that's running at the moment that may be of interest if you just want to meet some nice people or you just want to brush up on some creative skills, etc., etc. Just come, have a chat with us. We're lovely people, and if there's something that you're curious if we might be doing, then just ping us an email, hello@gameanglia.co.uk. But then I'm now going to be incredibly selfish and I'm just going to talk about me.
Please, this is what this is all about.
To be honest, I kind of I haven't really developed anything for about a year, but I'm about to go back and finish my final year of my master's. So I'm quite excited for that. So yeah, I've got some ideas for my thesis that I think my professors are going to be... They're going to take a deep breath after I pitch it to them, I think.
Can we hear any more? Can we hear a sneak peek of what you're thinking about writing about?
So what I'm working on is location-based VR experiences.
Okay, tell me more, please.
So I can't tell you too much because I'm very much in the R&D phase, so I don't know what it is yet, if that makes sense. But essentially what I'm looking at is, did you hear about the War of the Worlds VR experience? And there's another one called Alien Zoo, and then there was Darren Brown's Ghost Train that was at Thorpe Park, I think.
Right, I think I know the kind of thing you mean. I have an inkling anyway.
Yeah. So you strap on a VR headset, and if it's a kind of more well-funded show, I suppose, you end up with a backpack that's got a computer in it, and the idea is that you can walk around, and a lot of them are kind of very passive experiencing of narrative and events and things, but there are some quite cool ones where they kind of branch into the shooter genre and things. But yeah, I find it very interesting, so hopefully watch this space.
Very interesting. Lots of interesting stuff in that kind of space for sure. And surely they don't need their computers in their backs now. They can use like the Oculus Quest or something like that, right?
They can, but I can't afford that kind of tech.
Just look, got your computer in your backpack.
Yeah, massive, just the really, really big towers.
And some sunglasses.
Of course, yeah, you've got to look cool while you do it.
No, it's a VR headset, guys. It's a VR
I mean, yeah, my very low tech version of the prototype. You know those cardboard VR headsets that you can
Yeah,
get.
yeah. One of those and a tower and a backpack.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. Well,
um,
go on, please.
I was just going to say that's literally the only interesting things about my life. I'm not that interesting.
No, lots of interesting stuff there for sure, and lots of ways that people can get in touch with you. And I really do implore anyone who's listening to get in touch if you're in East Anglia. You know, I was actually I grew up in East Anglia.
Did you?
Yeah, a little town called Sudbury in Suffolk.
No.
Yeah,
Oh.
I haven't been there in a long time though. What's it like out in East Anglia now?
I'd imagine it's much the same as it ever was, just there's more people now. But Sudbury specifically, I know that the duck pond is good because by chance I happened to be over there a couple of weeks ago with a friend who's got children. Yeah, I wasn't just visiting the ducks on my own. So that might be a good idea one weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Oh well, it's good to know. Good to know my old stomping ground still
Oh yeah,
still alive and kicking.
still full of wonderfully bonkers people.
That makes sense. Well, I think we'll leave it there. I honestly can't thank you enough, Heather. It was really, really great to chat to you. And, you know, hopefully lots of really, really useful stuff there for any young person who's interested in getting into games and wants some great advice. Any young person who's out in East Anglia who wants to get involved with any of the great projects and initiatives that you guys have going on. And, you know, hopefully a bit of a laugh too.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you very much for having me. It's been lovely to meet you and chat to you about some stuff.
Brilliant. No, and you too. And I'm not sure when we'll be back for another one of these episodes. Probably next month. I'm not sure. But either way, check out on intergames.org website or the Getting Into Games podcast on Spotify. And, you know, Millicent on the Intergames Twitter will have much more updated information than me about when you can expect the next episode. I just record them. I don't know any of that stuff. But honestly, thank you so much again, Heather. And I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Thank you.